welcome to the Silhouettes of Success podcast with your host, successful entrepreneur, broker, and business mentor, Amber Weitzer. Because success comes in all shapes, sizes, and styles, the Silhouettes of Success podcast is shining the light on industrious women with a collection of curated conversations of intentional inspiration designed to inspire your heart, ignite your mind, feed your soul, and gift you with actionable insights directly from inspirational, everyday women who've shown tenacity, grit, and grace, having taken on the challenges in their lives and business and won. Remarkable, down-to-earth, and relatable, Amber and her guests will share with you uplifting and extraordinary real-life success stories, motivational ideas that just might help spark something within you. With the deepest desire to serve you, help you grow so you can begin to shine the light that will illuminate your very own silhouette of success. So, let's get to it.
Hello and welcome to the Amber Weitzer podcast, Silhouettes of Success. Our VIP feature guest is a seasoned business strategist, fractional COO, podcast host, speaker, and transformation leader. She is a former Fortune 500 executive and is the founder of On Call COO. She's passionate about women in leadership, business innovation, along with being an advocate for high-performing women. She is also a strong voice for domestic violence awareness and family court reform. When not strategizing, she enjoys running, traveling, and cheering on her three sons at their sporting events. Silhouettes, let's bring in Melissa Franks to the show. Hello, Melissa.
Hello.
All right, my lady, it is a joy to be with you today as you share your Silhouette of Success story. So once again, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and be able to have this conversation today.
Outstanding. So our audience has grown accustomed to letting me turn the show over to the VIP feature guest to let you share a little bit more about your background. So the stage is yours.
Well, that is so kind of you. My background is an interesting one. I like to say that was both an accidental executive as well as an accidental entrepreneur. I, grew up in a middle-class suburban life in a very small town in Northern California, and I went to college close to home and started my corporate career at 22. And really, that career was built on saying yes to any opportunity that showed up. Literally anything, including 9 months in finance, which was the worst yes possibly I ever made. But what that allowed me to do was have a really big portfolio of experience in my 25 years that I worked inside of a Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 company. And my last role in the corporate world, I was a chief operating officer of a technology startup inside of that business. And so I got the pleasure of growing it from 50 million to 350 million in just 3 years during COVID, no less. And when the business was really at a place where it could run itself, I decided to find a new opportunity and entered into the startup world. And I've always loved the startup world. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I did a lot of advising and working with venture capital and early stage startups. And the opportunity was too good to pass up. And as many things are when they are too good to be true, 10 months later, it was out of money. And the founder didn't want to get investors. And so we separated ways and I had a choice to make. Either go back to corporate and be a road warrior again, or start my own business. And as a single mom at that point with 3 boys, one was a teenager, one was almost a teenager, and then an elementary school kid, I made the decision that I needed to be close to home. And so I started On Call COO as a way to be able to, take care of my family and myself and also do work that I really love.
That's quite the journey.
Sure is.
We're going to dive into several of those components that you just shared. But let's go into, is there a typical day? And if the alarm clock or whatever, helps you in the morning start your day, when that day begins, what does a typical day look like for you? Are you structured? Do you have routine that you crave, or are you more spontaneous?
I am a type A personality through and through. I always have been. I was a child that could be dressed head to toe in white and not get dirty. My mom loves to tell that story and pull out pictures as evidence that, in fact, as at 3, I could make it through an Easter egg hunt pristine in a white dress. So I sleep is incredibly important. It's one of the things that I did not value while I was building my corporate career. And so I had a goal in 2024 to be able to structure my routine, my personal routine, in a way that allowed me to operate without an alarm. So I naturally wake up somewhere between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. every day of the week. And that is my time. I have teenagers in my house. So when it's not a school day, they can sleep like nothing I have ever seen before. So I wake up naturally. I make some coffee, and then I have pretty typical day. I peruse the news. I set a timer because I love current events, but I don't want to inundate my nervous system with doomsday things. And so I do that for a while, and then I usually just get to work and get 2 or 3 hours worth of work in before I need to start the day, either with school drop offs if it's a weekday, or getting the kids to their activities if something else. And if it's a weekday, the day is incredibly structured, and it's structured around the kids' schedules. So my mornings always look the same 7 days a week, but during the week, I get everybody to school, and then I have about 5 dedicated hours to work inside of my business before I become a taxi again. And then the rest of the day stays pretty unstructured because I want to make sure that I get them where they need to be. So my car is an office a lot, but it's what works for me right now in the phase that I'm in.
It's amazing what can be accomplished out of necessity. And when you center decisions around solid goals and you've got some clarity to do that, it's also a gift, I would say, because not everybody's able to define that for themselves.
Yeah, I would agree. I often say that I'm incredibly grateful to the 22-year-old that naively made a whole bunch of decisions personally and professionally, because she started a ball rolling that now has afforded me at 46 the ability to have a skill set I can monetize and have the freedom to choose how I use my time.
It's amazing. Touching on that 22-year-old, between the 22 and the 26-year-old, who do you think most influenced you when you embarked on whether it was the career path going into the financial and the 22, or have you had help in supporting and influencing you when you were ready to make that change? As a single mom at the time, you mentioned to be an entrepreneur and own your own business. Do you have?
That's a great question, and definitely the woman who was starting her career really early was very lucky because I worked in the fashion industry, and I was surrounded by 80% women in that Fortune 100 company that I worked for. So it was real comfortable because
Mhm.
I was able to look around. And 4 years later, I was in a financial services company, which was the exact opposite. Everybody was closer to retirement than having babies, and they were male, and just thought I was a crazy person. And so I spent most of my corporate career without a guiding light or a mentor. And I was just trying to figure things out, which created a ton of amazing stories about how following in the footsteps of men when you are a high achieving woman is a bad idea because it's not received in the same way. But when I decided that really out of necessity, that I needed to pivot into entrepreneurship. I had one very good friend that I had developed in my corporate career who was really a trusted advisor. She was the first member of my board of directors, if I can call it that. And she was encouraging me every step of the way to keep trying, to keep doing, to keep having conversations. And she really became the first cornerstone of the support system. And about 6 months in, I met a handful of other female entrepreneurs that were a little bit farther along than I was. And we were all in different industries and businesses, but they turned into a collective cheer squad, so to speak, that offered ideas and encouragement and just, would respond with a meme or like just a great voice message when something good happened. And the combination of that trusted, kind of board of directors woman and these new women that I had met were really an amazing support system to help me get to the place where I am today.
That's phenomenal that you just shared that, because one of the questions within this conversation is, as an independent business owner, where do you find support? So you've touched on that. Do you keep an established, personal professional board of directors? Do you belong to any groups, or how do you kind of cover that base?
So I'm taking a sabbatical from being inside of any formalized masterminds or groups or any of those things, because what I realized a little less than a year ago was that because I'm a new entrepreneur, I'm not new to business, I'm not new to growing businesses or turning around businesses. That's what I do for other people. But me personally, I am new, is the amount of suggestions and pieces of advice that were coming as input were overwhelming. And when I was able to strip everything and quiet all of the noise and really kind of back myself out of some of those collective rooms that were incredibly valuable for a variety of reasons, and just listen to myself because I know how to do this, growth was unlocked almost immediately. And so now I'm very specific with the inputs that I allow myself. And I've really curated a very small network of women for which I do ask for advice and counsel, and we bounce ideas off of each other. Because I know for me personally, the various approaches and strategies and opinions and thoughts were really sending me in down roads that had dead ends. And as a solopreneur at the time, it was a really significant waste of resources and stalling the growth of the business.
Okay, so I don't have any degree in this, but it's interesting because looking through my notes and listening to you share some of your Silhouette of Success story, um, you know yourself,
Mhm.
and you were able to, as you talked about, kind of quiet the noise, pull yourself out um, of what you knew you didn't need for now. Kind of goes back with what you were talking about with the Easter egg hunt and not having dirt on you.
Yeah.
And being white, keeping everything, what you need. You do have
Mhm.
that clarity. And so many seek the confidence to have clarity for themselves and to understand what they may need. And they do get into the situations where it's just a continual fire hose feed of noise, and they're not able to really pull out the valuable parts of that. And I think we're going to touch on that with your company, reviewing some of what I saw with your offerings. When you get stuck and you've got maybe a barrier, a seeming barrier between you and a goal or a dream, do you have any best practices that you'd like to share that could help others get past that? What works for you?
So this is something that I do with every business owner that I work with. Every single one. It is the absolute first step. We do not pass go. We don't collect $200 until we do it. We spend as much time as necessary defining why we're doing this to begin with. What's the vision? What is the life that when you decided to go all in, push your chips in, start the business, what life were you working towards? Where do you live? How do you spend your time? How are your days structured? Who's around you? Where do you vacation? Whatever those things are, everybody's vision is different. And that becomes the North Star. So as there are challenges that we're trying to overcome in the business, or there are setbacks, or we need to pivot the strategy, my business included or anybody else's, we always go back to that North Star and say, if we take this decision and head in that direction, is it going to get us closer or farther away? There was one business owner that I was working with at the beginning of the year. She's having astronomical growth in her business, almost unlike anything that I have ever seen. And she was making some decisions about what she was going to sell. And I knew we had not only abandoned the North Star, but we were headed into like another galaxy in the wrong direction with what she was trying to do. And so I quieted us down and I said, so is that going to get us closer to where you want to go? Is that going to get us closer? And on her own, after a minute of thinking about it, she said, no, it's going to make, she wants to be home with her children more was the goal, spend more time with her family. She said, it's actually going to make it worse than it is now, which I can't do. It was just a very clear non-negotiable. And so we didn't go the direction that she wanted to go. And instead we spent time figuring out how we could accomplish the same goals that she had and protect movement towards that North Star. And so that's anytime I start to get overwhelmed or I'm pondering any sort of decision, I always go back to what that is and check in to make sure that the decision I'm about to take is actually going to move me in the direction that I want to go. And if it's not, I'm okay with it. And there's a reason why.
In a similar train of thought on that, what positive adjustments have you made in your life or environment that do support your growth and your goals and your dreams?
There are a few things. One, I'm incredibly vocal about what the goals are, where I'm going. I ask for help when I need it. I was very private prior to when I was in corporate and still with my husband at the time, in a very toxic relationship. Everything was very, very private. So I didn't talk to anybody about what was happening, what I needed professionally, it was all me, solo support system. And now I'm very vocal about my thoughts and my opinions and where I need help. And that has allowed resources to come forward that I didn't even know were available to me. Just being able to have a bit of more transparency and vulnerability and hubris to communicate where I see this going and invite people along if they want to be a part of it that can help me get there faster.
Phenomenal. Talk to us about On Call COO and the inspiration that led you to launch, and share some of the, I guess, benefits and assets that you offer to your customers and clients. Fill us in.
Yeah, On Call COO is my baby. So when I was in corporate, I had a pretty healthy network towards the end of C-suite executive women. We met often, and we helped each other solve problems. It was a great way to kind of end that stage of my professional journey. And during COVID, a significant number of them all left their corporate roles to start something on their own for a variety of reasons. And every single one of them failed. Every single one. Not one of them made it out the other side successful. And because I'm curious, I asked every single one, what happened? How did it go? There was always a different story, and the root cause was always the same. They had either partnered with or sought out advice from somebody, and it was just flat out wrong. It was not sound business advice. And these were incredibly smart women, chief marketing officers of very big brand names that any of your listeners would know, chief people officers. Like, they're incredibly smart. They just didn't know how to run a business. And so when I started On Call COO, my mission really was to solve that problem, to counteract the business strategists that are out there and the consultants out there that don't actually have the credentials and the expertise and can send entrepreneurs into really dangerous waters by providing what they believe is good advice or strategy and really is just off the mark. And so On Call COO is founded to support the female entrepreneur. I want us to be able to say, someday in the future, that we materially impacted the market share of women who own businesses in the United States and more if we get there. And I really support businesses that are 3 million plus, because by the time you get to 3 million, you know your business, you know what you're selling, you know who your clients are, you figured out how to do it over and over and over again. We do offer business services to businesses under that, but they're more of that on-call support, like where you need to phone a friend, where you need to spend an hour and bounce ideas off of somebody. You know you're bad at interviewing, so you ask us to come in and do it with you so you can learn. But we really offer either part-time COO work inside of small businesses, or we provide business strategy and consulting support for the businesses that need a little bit of help. They're just not ready for a part-time COO. And primarily, we work with female-owned and operated businesses.
Phenomenal. How do you get the word out, and how do they find you? We're going to share all your contact information, of course, here at the end and give you that complete platform to do that. But are you strong with, you mentioned you have, you left with a great network of women. Are you gaining traction through the referral base, or are you finding that women are just, more or less finding you, and just, that resources is coming, as you say, when you open up, when we start talking, I know somebody. Where are you getting traction?
That's such a great question, because I had an initial hypothesis that I would grow this business by referral, and the opposite happened. In fact, that if I had continued to rely on referral, I would have no clients right now. And that is a very serious statement. I received 2 clients overall from my network, and that was actually from me reaching out. So we actually have 0 referrals, real referrals to date, in the real client basis. So the first 9 months was really tricky, because I had my close network where I had been able to acquire a couple of accounts, and I didn't have a pipeline. Social media wasn't converting. My podcast wasn't converting. The network that I was in of entrepreneurial women wasn't converting references or referrals. And when I had to have a big girl conversation with myself and say, what would you say to another business owner in this situation? The answer was that I needed to go where people were looking for these services, that I wasn't going to be able to articulate in a 1-minute reel or a small story snapshot. If the right people were looking at my Instagram, for example, the belief that they needed to have that we could actually help them, so communicate to them that they had a problem and then solve it for them in that short of a time. And so what I started to do was run ads on Google. And what I found was people are looking for help. And so all of my clients today have come from Google ads, every single one. We get a couple of leads a month, if not more than that, just kind of depends on what's going on. And that's because they don't need us until they know that they need help. And so throwing spaghetti at the wall just wasn't working. And really intentionally advertising is growing the business exponentially.
Again, another asset that you have with this is you are able to see, the writing on the wall, and you're able to have clarity and kind of pull back and pull away from what is and what isn't working. 2-part question. So was there ever a specific point in time, event, or key situation in your professional career that forced you to take a monumental shift? And you might have shared one of them. And with that result, positive or painful, how did going through that actually help you grow?
So I didn't share this one with you, but I think that it's worth noting. In 2021, I became an official and formal on the record whistleblower. And I knew when I did that I put a ticking clock on my role inside of that global organization. Of course, there were policies around retaliation and all those sorts of things, but at the level that I was at, I knew that if I took the action and became the whistleblower, which resulted in all of the things that we needed to have happen for the sake of the business, that my tenure would wind down. And what was interesting about that action was a component of becoming a whistleblower was there was a strong culture of gaslighting. It was incredibly toxic and abusive. And I was blind to it for a very long time until it, quite frankly, got pointed out to me in full color. And what I realized through that whistleblowing activity was the reason I didn't see it happening was because it was happening in my house. And it was my personal life experience that had created this understanding of normalcy. So when it started to happen professionally, I was like, oh, this is just how not the best people in the world behave. And this is just how it is. And that moment of clarity when I stood up, very loudly and said, this isn't okay, was the moment in 2021 where all of the plates started to shift. I went through a very significant personal development journey. I knew that I needed to leave the marriage that I was in and began starting to work on that. And I also started to make very different decisions about myself professionally because my priorities had changed so much. I really kind of took my life back at that point. And that has provided so much clarity that it's with ease that I move through these transitions that occurred after that.
When do you feel your greatest sense of satisfaction?
I would say that it's when I work on a strategy with one of my clients and it yields the result that we're looking for. And that can be small things, but when I have a client say, I'm not working at night anymore, or I'm not worried about paying our monthly operating costs, or this is the first month that I can tell you can go a little over budget with that vendor because I know we have cash in the account. And they just have this peace of mind moment, or they're able to actually move closer to their vision. That's when I have the greatest satisfaction, because we do the work that we do in On Call COO so that these entrepreneurs can have a thriving business to enable the life that they really imagine for themselves. And when we get those little wins, it's the best in the world.
We all, I would say, crave resources, whether it be to perhaps inspire, uplift, expand our minds. Do you have a favorite book or mentor or author that you'd want to share with us, and what makes it a favorite?
I am a content junkie. So I read a ton of books. And I think that a really good book for everybody, and I can't remember the author right now, but a really good book for everybody that's in entrepreneurial space to read is Buy Back Your Time. It really talks about how to leverage highly skilled professionals so that you can delegate the things that you don't need to be doing, so you can spend your time really doing the things that you're gifted at that nobody else can do. It's a really great book for every entrepreneur, whether they're a solo entrepreneur or they have a team.
That's fantastic. I tell you, I have bookshelves here, and that is one of the questions I always ask. That is the first time I've heard that title. So, of course, audience knows we'll have a link to it. So I'll look it up, but I've never heard of that book.
Oh,
Thank
it's
you.
a fantastic book.
Yeah.
It'll change everybody's life. It really will.
Well,
It really
ta-da.
will.
Okay. All these leaps of progress and clarity, and just honestly excited about the inspiration and your ability to help based on what you've gone through and what you have created. So, all right, my lady, I'm watching the clock. I've got a couple more quick questions. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, it's great.
Super. The audience has also become accustomed to hearing maybe kernels of sage advice or key inspiration. We call it intentional inspiration. Do you have a piece of key go-to advice that resonates with you, that was shared with you, or that you share with your clients? Maybe it's a quote, anything you'd want to pass on.
So one of the things that I say often, there's actually two pieces of advice that I would give that I say often, is that data does not do drama. So small businesses can become emotional powder kegs And if you are able to leverage data in your decision making and your evaluation criteria, and you just figuring out what's going on, it diffuses all of the emotions, because data and drama just don't mix. So that would be the very first one. I recommend to everybody to figure out 1, 2, 5, et cetera, metrics that they should track in their business to help them make decisions. It will really help everybody reduce their stress levels in their business. And the other one that I have been saying, I think I've probably been saying this for over 20 years, is simplicity wins. Entrepreneurs are adrenaline junkies. They may not be jumping out of airplanes. They may not be in the X Games, but they are constantly looking for the next thing that they can do in their business that's going to bring $1 million in. And what that means is you're constantly touching and tweaking and refining, and simplicity and stability allow the customer to remain clear on who you are, what you offer, what you sell, and what it's like to purchase your product or your service. As soon as you start to introduce complexity, everybody gets confused, and confused people don't buy.
Phenomenal. It takes discipline, whether it's natural or learned, to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I love those. Love those. Okay. All right, milady. I know we're winding it down here. The stage is going to be now completely yours. Where can our audience go to either find and or connect with you on your socials, or any contact information you want to share to help them learn from you and what you have to offer and support you in your continued success?
If you want to learn more about On Call COO, you can go to melissafranks.com. It's really that simple. And there you will learn more about the business. You can schedule a free consultation call if that's something that is interesting to you. And you can also see some case studies of former and current clients to get kind of a lay of the land on who we support. Spoiler alert, it's every industry. We've been very lucky to be able to do that. If you are more of a social warrior, come to Instagram. You can follow us either at Melissa_Franks or at on_call_COO. That's where we hang out. And then I have a weekly podcast, which is called the Opt-in Podcast, which is tailored to give very actionable business advice and tips and lessons to entrepreneurs at all stages.
Outstanding. And the audience has come to rely on all of these links being in the show notes. So they are literally one click away from connecting with you. So you have our commitment that we'll make sure and include those so they can find you easy breezy.
Perfect.
Yes, milady, time flies when we're having fun, and it has been a joy and an honor. Melissa, you're just a pleasure and a delight, and we appreciate you sharing a portion of your Silhouette of Success story with us. So thank you once again for spending time with us.
Thank you so much.
All right, milady, until next time, enjoy your day.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Silhouettes of Success podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on all the new episodes. We are here for you and with you. We encourage you to share this podcast on all your socials and pass on the light to help illuminate another silhouette of success. To find out the latest ways to inspire your heart, ignite your mind, and gain actionable insights, subscribe at thesilhouettesofsuccess.com or connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. We're grateful that you've tuned in. Remember, you are exactly where you need to be, right here with us. This is the Amber Weitzer podcast, Silhouettes of Success.